Hi, and welcome to the February meeting of Wonder Wisdom Women. We are from all over. I've met you all from the Vervaeke land. So I'm so happy that you guys have chosen to be a part of this presentation and find out a little bit more about how human design looks at gender differentiation. I will start sharing my screen now. And this is not covered in any of my certification studies. This is a self-study. Some of the terms and concepts are going to be a little bit advanced, but I'll try my best to kind of explain it at a fundamental, more introductory level. So human design is a combination of a few different interesting things. So the primary being astrology, where the planets and planetary objects were located in the cosmos at the time of your birth. It creates an imprint, not only the moment you're born, but there's a first imprint while you're still in the womb. So it's a bit more woo than just astrology. Um, there is an inclusion of the I Ching, which is an ancient Chinese divination system that is older than the Bible. There is some speculation about the 64 hexagrams of the I Ching being associated with the 64 codons within our human genome, which is speculative, but it's interesting nonetheless. There's a binary within the I Ching of yin and yang. So around this circle to the bottom right, you can see all of these barcode looking things. These are the 64 hexagrams around what is called the rave mandala within human design. And the solid lines are yang lines. The broken lines are yin lines. So all of these 64 variations are different degrees of yin and yang, and they are associated with a certain point within the actual biological form through what are called energy centers. And that's where the concept of the chakras come in. You can see here that in traditional Hindu Brahmin chakra system, there are 7. Human design includes 2 more. So there are a total of 9 in human design, and we can get into that on the next slide. And lastly, there is an element of sacred geometry. I use the term sacred geometry. In traditional human design, they use the Kabbalah. I do not, because I do not know anything about Jewish mysticism, and I want to honor that. I don't want to include a what is considered a sacred system and mystical approach of another culture that I haven't really studied. And I think something else makes a little bit more sense to me, which is this chestahedron structure founded by Frank Chester in 2000. Just the geometry aligns, and if you have not studied the chestahedron, there's a lot of cool and exciting ideas that spur up during the study. It's theorized that this structure is the actual geometric shape of the human heart. Most specifically, this top right version here, which could be the design side, which in human design, which is the red. There are unconscious, conscious elements to human design, and the black could be flipped and then together. It could be this interesting shape at the bottom there. This is more so what I'm studying on my own and trying to create a comprehensive way to communicate such a weird thing to the public. So I won't get into that too much. I just wanted to tell you why I think it's sacred geometry. So this is the body graph. I went over the outermost layer, which are the hexagrams. This is a rave bodygraph along with the rave mandala that shows each of the 9 centers. I have bolded the centers that we will go over today. We're not going to go over all of them, but we will go over the Ajna Center, which is an awareness center, one of 3. We will go over the Throat Manifestation Center. All roads lead to the throat in human design. So that's where everything can manifest itself into the material realm. And then we will mostly go over the sacral center. Half of these themes originate from this generative, creative energy center that is the human body's largest motor. It's the center of our reproductive system, our womb area, which is number 6 in this graph here. So a motor, a manifestation center, and a mental awareness center. I've listed out the gates of gender differentiation. We will go over them in order, but I wanted to give just a high-level overview of the energy. You can kind of get a taste of, get an idea of the language that I'm going to be using, kind of where that is stemming from for each of these different 6 primary foundations. So gate 3 is kind of the innermost layer of this onion that we're going to peel back. We're going to dig in there and then we're going to go outwards. So at the source, which is this guy here, and a little bit of background just because it's very needed to this whole discussion. So some terminology. A connection point between 2 centers is called a channel. And if one half of it is colored in and one half of it is white, the colored in section is called a gate. So if this gate and this gate would be lit up, it would create a channel, therefore creating a life force energy between these 2 centers. You can think of that as the sum of 2 parts. When they come together, it creates something new. The sum is greater than the total of the 2 parts. It sparks into life. So we are going to be focusing on gates, which are the hanging colored in parts there. And I'll mention the channels. So the source, the cycles, care, rationalizing, assimilating, and identification. I've just used a couple words to give you the general energetic expression of these areas within the body. So gate 3 is a format energy. This is a zoomed in picture. So this center column that connects the sacral and the root is a very mutative energy. It's very individualistic. What the text authored by Ra Uru Hu or Robert Allen Krakauer, his pen name is Ra Uru Hu. He describes it as the source. I go a little bit further and I interpret it as the eggs of who a person is at the gamete level begins while they're in their grandmother's womb. So it's even closer to the source than what we think of conception as. We have all existed within the womb of our grandmother. And so there's a very distinct line of connection. However, we are all shells. I mean, very early on in this text, he emphasizes that this is all an illusion. This is an illusion of a binary. there's differentiation in terms of that. So throughout this whole discussion, I want us to play with, okay, well, who are we if not a direct connection with this form, with this body? Yes, it's an illusion, but we have to live it. We're still very influenced by what's going on in our reality, reaching for what is new, potentially viable, only one possibility at a time. So to keep up this illusion, something yang, something yin, yin come together, create something new, but that's still only a yin and or a yang and I put in the transgender symbol at the start because I want to not overlook that there are a lot of people opting out of this binary. And I just want to acknowledge that. And part of the reason why I would like to do this presentation is to kind of help us have conversations that will create greater understanding for everyone involved that want to have conversations like that, as hard as they are currently. The gate 3 is a part of a larger channel called the channel of mutation, a design of energy which initiates and fluctuates. And the hexagram is called difficulty at the beginning because we have the first hexagram, which is all yang, the second hexagram, which is all yin, and then this third hexagram is that difficulty in the beginning when something new sparks. The second gate is gate 42, which is right next to gate 3. It's called the gate of growth, and it's another format energy. These 3 channels here are all format energies. The first one we went over is mutative, and it happens like a pulse. This 4253, and that's how I would call it, the 4253, is it's the channel of maturation, and this operates in a cycle. There's a clear beginning, clear middle, clear end. And so it's a part of a human experiential way. So at this level of gender differentiation, we focus on cycles. So not only the menstrual cycles, which in this text he does not even bring up, which I find very curious. It might have slipped his mind because those who do not experience menstrual cycles so prominently within their life, I guess it doesn't come to mind as easily. So not only within the cycles, but the entire lifespan, he tries to make the case that females live longer than males. And it's that way for a reason. Women enter menopause to kind of preserve their biological virility, you could say. So there's a difference not only in the way we go through life, but how we approach these cycles of life. Part of this format energy is that it is not goal-oriented. So this is a little bit of mystical speak, but there are quarters that this circle is divided into. This gate in particular straddles 2 of them. One that is a yang spirit, and the other one is a civilizing yin form. That being said, it's kind of hard to really speak about this in a way that doesn't include some kind of conditioning from the collective. But it's still at this very deep level because there are still menstruation, and apparently in many, many cultures, women do outlive men. So the channel is called the maturation, and it's a design of balanced development. So straddling those 2 energies, the yin and the yang. The third sacral gate that we're going to go over is this gate 27, which is the gate of nourishment. Now, this one is not quote unquote, reaching down to the root, it is reaching over to this center on the right. And this one in the body graph that I have photoed in each slide for easy reference. This center on the left, I apologize, is called the splenic center. And this center is responsible for our oldest awareness that we have as human beings. So this has to do with our physical well-being at any given moment. It's a very existential center. So an awareness, while we move through space-time, our intuition is always changing. So it's not a guttural, heavy response in the body. It's something quieter, and it's something we interpret it as weak. We often just overlook it, but think of the awareness that we have as a spidey sense with this sacral center, which is a really powerful motor. So when those two connect, it creates the channel of preservation, a design of custodianship. And this is a part of a tribal defense circuitry. All these channels create circuitry in the body graph, and it's neat. It's not limited to just supporting children. A major focus of this is just the support rooted in a community. So the family branching outside of the self is primarily focused on the survival of the immediate support system. And here we can really start to experience some of these limitations of gender differentiation. So Ra Uruhu mentions a lot in this section of the subjugation of the female in what he considers the homogenized field. So the conditioned field of kind of a global collective. So there's a lot of interesting things that we can get into here. For me, with my feminist studies, I always think of different cultures. I can perceive things in my Western, white, feminist lens. Oh, we lost Chris. So one quote that stuck out to me within this section was "no right to the larger world," speaking of the female, because it is not its domain. I was just checking the chat. Page 104. So it's like, oh, sorry, this is the way it is, which made me think of a recent interview I watched with Jordan B. Peterson and Dr. Sarah Hill. They were talking a lot about how birth control influences the psychology of women. And he said something that really caught my attention, and that is the default moral ethos for women does not scale beyond the family. And I interpret that quote as something stemming from this foundation within this gender differentiation. If the women decide to branch out outside of this nourishing role that has been an imperative for us, rooted in this tribal community, part of the outer structures start to crumble that we'll get to next. And you can make the argument that it even starts deeper than this with those cycles, and that the pill changes our cycles. So the next thing to kind of be influenced in that ripple effect is this nourishment. I'm not sure what moral ethos is supposed to refer to. Maybe we can talk about that. Okay. So now we're departing from the sacral center, going to a new center, which is less about the actual reproductive system and more about the mental awareness differentiation that men and women may have, that is founded upon the differentiation at source, cycles, caring. And so this is the way the mind processes information. As you can see in the hexagram, the bottommost line is a yang line, and all of the lines above that are broken lines, which are the yin lines. So that's just something really interesting about the hexagram. I don't have a whole lot to say about just the hexagram structure, but the next one is actually flipped. That's just something for your imagination to play with. So this one is really interesting to me because it starts to really introduce how democracy influences the gender differentiation, how it can break it down. The more and more women who are becoming educated, the more we realize that there's not so much of a difference how we can conceptualize and rationalize things. However, the conditioning field kind of has made its mark on women in particular about the mental anxiety we feel not knowing things for certain in a way that we've been conditioned to view what is worth knowing, what you should be able to know, what you don't know. That's a very patriarchal structure that is crumbling down. A lot of us aren't sure what is valuable to know. And so women are kind of pushing back. The more educated we become, the more we're challenging the value of what all can be known and what we shouldn't know. And so it's a design of a thinker. There's just lots of thinking going on. It's another individualistic, mutative kind of energy. So this is new things that you're bringing to the table, that it's coming in from this ajna head connection. So it's still up here. What comes next is how those weird ways we're thinking differently and conceptualizing actually come into our material realm. So this gate 23, the next layer out is called splitting apart, the gate of assimilation. It's how we fit in, how we are actually explaining our ideas, how well people are receiving them. This energy is that of a freak to genius, genius to freak. Who knows what's going to come out of your mouth half the time if you just let it kind of express itself. He introduces in this section the idea of biological heresy. So the places in the world where we can begin to challenge everything that has come before this, whether it's our cycles, breaking free from our cycles, the women getting education to match that of the man's kind of intellectual presence in the world. Next just comes this, all of that is actually getting expressed now and making its mark and manifesting itself in the world. So there needs to be an acceptance of diversity, and this is an amoral acceptance. So to introduce morality to this is something that stymies it, because it's just a very mutative, it's new things that are coming out. So this is one that has been kind of nebulous to me, and I would love to talk more about this energy in particular, because I'm still kind of working on how that expresses in my own self. So lastly, this is the outermost layer. You can think of it maybe as the most shallow level of gender differentiation. And this is about differentiation in identification. This is a very complex gate because it can actually connect to 3 different other gates. And by that quality, it's called an integrative channel. It's an intuitive channel. So it's not that sacral primal response. This is something much more on the accessible range of what we can access in the now. So we think differently, we assimilate differently, we are different. A recognition and awareness in the now, which transforms understanding into right action. So, how does that look usually for men? How does that look usually for women? How does that look in an ideal world where we all are being ourselves? And how does that look in a homogenized world where we're just being conditioned? This is an expression of I am now to I know I am myself doing now. So I am and I'm doing. This is just what are you first? A lot of people identify as a man, as a woman, firstly, because it is so integrated with our conditioning from birth, from source, through these cycles. And once we get to scratch under the surface, a lot of us that are breaking away from these homogenized ways of being, we have to dig deeper than just this identification. So this transforms understanding into right action. A lot of this is about surviving in the moment. There's a channel of awakening within this gate in particular, a channel of charisma, and a brainwave channel. I had mentioned the splenic center. This is a direct connection with that splenic center to the throat. So that ancient awareness is given a voice through this gate. But like I said, it's always changing. So spontaneous energy. When I read this, I was going back and forth a lot within myself. What does it really mean? Why am I feeling kind of angry at this part? Is that really true? This is a man writing this. He didn't even mention menstrual cycles. So, but I think I understand the heart of the matter. And that's a call to action of letting go of this strategic manipulation. But a lot of us have, we've grown up so enmeshed in that kind of environment with our tribe. But so letting go of the mind, remembering who and what we are first, stripped away of any of this gender identities, the way we think, our cycles, the way we assimilate into our environment and the crowds we're in, and even our biology, which is kind of breaking the covenant. Up until now, evolution has driven us to just reproduce, and this is kind of breaking from that. So there's a claim that evolution just isn't as concerned with our reproduction. We're not the tip of the pyramid anymore when it comes to being the most evolutionarily fit species. What does that mean? Does it have a plan to replace us? Are we going to evolve to the next stage? How soon is that going to happen? Fertility is going down. So it's an interesting argument. And I have just a couple discussion prompts. We don't have to go over these ones, but there's a couple quotes where Ra Uru Hu mentions, yeah, give up your gender. That's when you give up your mind. And for me, I'm curious if that can be interpreted as a disregard your body and just focus on your personality, putting your personality above this integrated, holistic, sentient being. And how is it different for us living in more advanced cultures than it is for women? The reality is that we're still in a field with women that are not treated right at all. That is one. And the second one brings in the meaning crisis, which is why I think you are here, we are here. This does bring in some touchy subjects, which I would love to go over, but I don't want to, we'll see how it goes. And that's about how people who are really struggling with their gender identities now, how can we understand them better? How can we maybe use something like this to have conversations that are beneficial for everybody involved? Are we living in a unique time in history in which biological heresy prompts empowerment or further confusion? I'd love to dive into that, or the first prompt, or any other questions you might have about what I discussed, or more generally, human design. I think I can open it up to the room now.
That was wonderful. I'm the last person here. I think Adriana is going to come back though. That was very clear. Human design is very kind of intimidating to comprehend, but I think you unpacked that for our purposes really well.
Thank
At
you.
least I had more ability to understand it perhaps than I have in the past. Yeah, I've got many different access points, which allows me to understand what you're bringing up. Um, and I love your prompts, and I love the bravery um, that's here in everything that you shared. And yeah, and just in you and this willingness to like come forward with the big questions in this very open way.
Mm.
And I'm into talking about them, but I'm just wondering if we should wait for Adriana to come back to get into the questions further.
Mm-hmm.
I'm yeah, I would like to ask you a question about what that Jordan Peterson quote kind of how you how you related to that when you heard it.
Yeah. So that was from the video, Would You Love the Same Man on and Off the Pill?
Mm.
I'd like to go back to the slide.
Ah,
I thought there was a lot of issues within that interview, and that was only one thing that came out. It made me feel like he was focused at this level without acknowledging any of the other kinds of gender differentiation
mm,
within these, according to human design, 6 different foundations, primary foundations of the differentiation. This is
mm.
only one of them. To me, I don't think it is the most important, at least not in our culture, to say that it does not scale beyond the family just sounds ridiculous to me. I would like to say that I think of my family as, as large as it can be. I think of human design, the solar system. Like, what if I think that is my family?
Yeah. And it was probably one of many just kind of comments that maybe didn't get unpacked in a stream of a conversation. Yeah. But yeah, it's somewhat insulting. But it's also, from what you said in the human design system, there's this sense that that is a part of our history, like that's part of the homogenized field. that, you say his name again?
Ra-uru-hu.
Uruhu, kind of captured and could you identify for me again, gate of 27, the gate of caring?
Yes. So,
That's in the sacral center.
yes. Oh, I apologize. Mm-hmm.
Okay.
And we need
Like
it.
this part of our biological history, part of our evolutionary history that we're all contending with. So on that level, it sort of seems true.
Yeah, I think
But still relevant now.
yeah, that's why I appreciate the comment. It's not limited to supporting children. I mean, it can be the needs of elders, which is highly, highly neglected right now, or the infrastructure of communities. And that it's just a differentiation between the two. You know, how does that usually manifest itself in men? How does it usually show up for women?
Mhm.
Um, and it's hard for me to be totally 100% against it because we're still living in a world where that is so true for many women and men being limited to what their role is said to be.
Absolutely.
Adriana,
Are we, sorry, no, I'm interested if we're doing a discussion. If we are, is it possible to just see each other? Just because it's
yes,
easier for me to have a conversation, because you guys are so little on my screen, I can't. Ah, that was beautiful, Julie. Thank you. It was really clear, and I heard Delia talking about it too. It was very um yeah, it was just very. I could see your gift in bringing together complexity in an easy way. Um, as easy as human design can be for the layperson. It's not a pub conversation, but I was thinking, I was trying to make notes. It'll be really, in some way, it'll be a little bit tricky for me to go into some of the tangents that came to me, maybe because of time, but I'm interested in, like, it's something that I'm interested in exploring further. Like, if there is a door that's open here, I'd love that to continue in whatever different formats, because I think it's interesting. Um, so there are, like, part of my work is trying to unpick the where it's gets stuck between cultural constructs and actually what's happening. So actually, like, there's lots of times that happens, and I even saw that in, so for example, the fact that Ra Uhu, whatever, how do you say his name? Uhu.
Ra-uru-hu, or you can
Ra.
say Alan Krakauer.
Okay, Ra. Let's call Ra. So the fact, so there's a lot of interpretation. So even like in the way, because there is a truth in the way women experience reality as not mirrored back. Like, there's something about the systems that we live in that don't mirror our experience back to us. So that does cause a disruption. Like, there are elements that a lot of women find themselves crazy in different points, because they don't see that, right? So if you have a menstrual, that's simple, in the simplicity of a menstrual cycle, if you never see that in the outside world mirrored by, a prime minister talking about it, whatever it is, you just think that doesn't exist. So we created this crazy thing in which something as fundamental to the female body as the menstrual cycle becomes a construct. We make it into it's not a construct, it's a very felt experience. Now, it has also deep, deep, deep psychological reverberations. So it's not just the bleeding. it kind of like, and where my work is going is that the capacity of a woman, the intellectual, emotional, relational capacity of a woman is interwoven, comes forth through this female body. There's no other way. That's how you're gonna engage with the world. And the fact that he inhabited a male body already would inhibit him from seeing that. There's no way, like he wouldn't be able to. He can only imagine, and when he imagines, he will imagine from a male body perspective, which is not right, which is a projection on what that is. That's not what he can see. So the fact that you are engaging with the content's amazing. I'm like, yes, take that and do a female version of that, like Spring Chang is getting she's doing the amazing task of reinterpreting the I Ching from a female body, embodied being of a dancer and a thinker and a musician. And that has to happen because the way we're interpreting things through, and there's genius in the way they channel the information, and there is distortion for the woman. There's no other way. So then I'm going, yes, like if you're grappling with some things, what came up for me is like, if you have like some pods of experiment in which you can use some of the ideas and see how they land. So that's the first thing. But the comment of Sarah E. Hill and Peterson. So I'd say that there's truth and there's distortion in that. There's and that's the problem. The problem is there's always some truth, and we get triggered. And then we chuck the baby with the bathwater, and that's kind of like taking us to a very precarious situation as women. So Rachel Hayden, I hope that she would have been here, but she couldn't come. So Rachel is my partner in crime. Like, she's one of my best mates to go in the nuances of what it is to inhabit a female body, because she's got nuance, from more nuance that some of us have, even though she doesn't have a womb, because the contrast of the experience that she had before with testosterone is so big. So she can see the contrasting experience and speak very clearly to the contrast. So she talks, and so we in conversation, we describe the female experience as being inside an infinity pool. So you're inside the pool. So you can be intellectual, you can be whatever you want to be, but you're inside the pool of reality. And whereas males, they're not inside the pool of their reality, they're outside the pool of reality. So there's a different, if you imagine an infinity pool, there's a perspective, a vantage point from inside, and there's a perspective from outside. And women are now fragmented because we imagine ourselves to be outside, but we never matches our experience because we're inside. So we can access the projection of what it is to be outside, because the world of the constructs is outside. So we've lived with it so much that we understand it, but it's not real to our experience. So when people even cursing people in the internet, when people write, so I'm like, the things that I'm contemplating at the moment, because I'm writing a book, is like, for example, even the power of now is so incredible from outside, from a man outside, that goes like, oh, I know, if you're in the now, it's amazing. And I'm like, well, for women, they get insights into that because they forgot they're already inside. So when they go like, so the genius of a woman is immanence, is the power of now. So women have that really readily available as soon as they drop the construct that they're not there. So anyway, I'm saying a lot of things because when Peterson said the family thing, there's truth to it, which is but the familial of a woman, if you're inside the pool, everything's your family, and the pool grows up. As you grow up and mature as a woman, the infinite can be your family. For most women, it will be just their family. For most, tribal settings, ethnocentric communities, it'll be just their families. But as you mature yourself and you grow in your awakening, whatever that means, because we even have to deconstruct that because it has been constructed by the male psyche. Even that, we grow to become family with everything that exists. But it's very different than the experience of awakening from an illusion. That's, for me, it's crazy when Rahavu, who whatever talks about the illusion. For me, that's like crazy. But that's not crazy. For him, it's true. And I'm like, but from a woman's perspective, I'm like, what are you waking up from? I mean, that's totality. That's So I'm constantly having to get the gems of these insights and go like, okay, and where it doesn't completely fit. So I see what Sarah is pointing to, and then what frees women biologically from the family bind is menopause, because then menopause is truly gonna change your hormonal setting, in which you will I don't know if Delia is going through. I'm going through perimenopause, so I'm feeling Are you?
Oh yeah.
Yeah, so we can talk about it another, which is really fun. I mean, it's a juicy conversation because it's like, to me, the unplugging of the maternal feels fascinating. If I'm not going like, oh my God, I'm going crazy, if I don't have an overload of cultural constructs, but I just be with the felt experience of what that is, it's massive. And it is a whole undoing of being plugged in and loving as a mother reality. I'm stopping to love reality, including my kids, as a mother. I'm like, and I'm like, holy shit, that's scary as shit. Because there's moments that I'm like, who am I if I don't love everything as a mother? But I'm becoming something else, which is loves and is loving, but it has a completely different. It's like the detachment that Buddha said, but it's born out of the body, and it makes total sense from that place. So I'm saying, so Sarah is right a little bit, Peterson's right a little bit, like, but we need to all figure this shit out together because we have been so fragmented. That's
Wow. I do appreciate everything that you just said. Yeah, wow. Just gonna take it in. It was great. Can't wait for your book. But I do appreciate that you said that about being inside and the now, and the now is always here. And so that this power of now construct doesn't connect and doesn't relate. And it was like powerful naming for me to hear you say that, because I've felt that my whole life, and I've tried to articulate that my whole life, like a kind of resentment at that concept. Like there was this kind of male entitlement that was coming along with it, even though it was true. Like I could see it was true, but there was like, oh, well, that's easy for you to fucking say, kind of feeling from the inside. But I love the way you framed it without any of that judgment. And I also really appreciated what you just shared about the illusion piece, because I've also been equally as frustrated and struggling to see that. And I've been seeing that a lot in some of the clients that I work with. I'm a woman-centered coach, and just women who have been totally immersed in some Buddhist philosophies of, like some ideas that, this is all an illusion, and how much fragmentation there is in our minds and our conception of self, and how painful it is actually to unpack with somebody. It's like it's so self-negating that it hurts, even hurts me now
Mm.
to bring it up. And there's not a lot of spaces in which there's people that can say it like you just did, Adriana. It's like so great. Um, yeah, it's been very painful. There's a lot of pain here, and all of these concepts are true and not true. And this thing that you were this amazing, the manifesting center of the throat, and this power of like of bringing the genius to the freak and the freak to the genius, and this like spontaneity that's here, like that's what we're doing, right? And that's, I feel like, maybe the evolutionary. I'm doing I think I'm bringing my genius into freak mode right now. But like maybe maybe the evolutionary uh principle that's moving through us now, especially in menopause. I'm really going through and have lots of conversations about what menopause is us finally learning how to speak this kind of radical truth, to be an embodiment of, and to be the one who who creates a new world or a new paradigm, from uncertainty, from like this raw material, like from this kind of willingness to kind of not know, from this unknowingness. That feels like it's coming up in me, and it's like that feeling that you explained, Adriana, of like just like this undoing that menopause is, and how fucking fascinating it is. And then the anger and the rage that we've not been like, what the hell? This is 2024. Like, why didn't anybody tell me about this? Why isn't this being modeled? Like, where is the reflection? Like, it's incredible. Like, there's more and more people are talking about, like, that's our history. Like, that's what we've been coming up through that. And now we're in this moment where people are finally talking about it. It's messy, it's wild, it's raw, and it does really feel like that center. It does really feel like what you described there, Julie. Like, um, yeah, that was my messy attempt to connect a lot of the things that I just heard.
You guys are really giving me clarity on that gate. The one that I said I needed some clarity on, the assimilation, because I
Yeah,
hear a lot about what I'm hearing from you is how we are different in the way we assimilate into our environment, because the expression has been largely male for all these ways of knowing. You have, the Buddha left his family to go get enlightened.
yeah,
I want, I can't get over that when
yeah,
I practice Buddhism.
yeah.
Um, and in the way that the mental anxiety I sometimes experience when I'm with a group of men or in a community of male-centric ideologies, I get insecure because I feel like, no, um, they really sound like they know what they're talking about. Like, oh, this has been around for thousands of years.
Mhm.
And even the power of now, I got a little bit triggered because Eckhart Tolle speaks about the pain body of the female, and he gets it right. There's a pain body, and it's psychological, it's physical, for some of us. And I don't know if you heard this, Adriana, but I came to this similar conclusion, like, okay, there's an infinite scale where our moral ethos can be. What I think he's referring to, though, is the nuclear family, and especially within the context of that discussion, and when we do come against these ideas of what roles women should have when it comes to their moral responsibilities, like I think there is definitely a restructuring going on. And it is messy. It's so messy. But I feel like that assimilation is where that is stemming from. You know, with this, there's like 5 other complex areas that we can also talk about. That's why I love it so much. And I'm thankful that you said that, Adriana, that, you know, you see how my perspective is coming through with this content, because for me to get into my freak zone, the kind of the origin of how this works is that we have crystals of dark matter that reside in our form. And we are in a stream of neutrinos. And neutrinos have mass. So there's some kind of information that is constantly streaming through us. And there's a difference with these two crystals, one being personality, one being this design crystal. And the start of it all holds a lot of importance in the sperm. Like apparently the sperm has the ingredients, and it just kind of goes to the egg, and the egg is just there without any like ingredients in itself. And even that, I'm like, what? It has probably some substance to make the spark ignite, you know, but I mean, to have all of the necessary ingredients and the egg having none, that just seems backwards. It just seems backwards. So even with this, I'm like, Brown Uruhu, you got this crystal stuff wrong.
But I love that see, that's what I love. I love, as you were saying that, I was also noticing Delia, and Delia was moving her body and closing her eyes. And that's a very, like, that's usually, it would be taken as a side note. That's a side note. That's actually not what really matters. Like the real conversation is not happening in Delia's body. And I'm like, this is a problem. This is the problem. This is very fragmented. This is happening. Delia is doing something that I can't understand. She's metabolizing something right there. And therefore I can speak about something that she was processing right there. You know, like this, there's all these, like, we're not separate organisms. I'm being the mouth. And I said in a group of women that I was recording, yes, last week, I said I'm often the mouthpiece, like, of some circles, but there's no illusion here that I'm the one holding the knowing, because often I don't even know what I'm saying. And sometimes when I listen to the recording, I'm like, that was quite clever. Like, I don't know, like, how did that happen? But it was obviously the configuration of something. These bodies needed to be together, and human design is beautiful because it explains that in a way that people can understand. But I feel it. I feel that this combination here is catalyzing something here, and Delia is moving over there, and you having insights over here, and I'm speaking over here, and then we're constructing this piece that is the sum total of this gathering right now, in which my book is going to be informed by this, and your work is going to be informed by this, and I'm sure Delia's work is going to be informed by this. And I think that it was for a lot of time, like when you're saying the guys sound so confident, and that piece just landed for me like in the last year, like truly, because I mistook it as truth. Like even with my partner, like, and sometimes I had to really double click and go like, do you know what you're doing? And he's like, no. And I'm like, but you sound like you do. And he's like, oh yeah, because I have to figure it out. And I'm like, but I have to figure it out too, but I don't sound like I know. So I had to unpack it a lot to go like, oh, holy shit. If I'm doing this in my relationship, and then my dad does the same, and I was brought up by a dad that does the same, and then in my retreats, my co-facilitator does the same. So a lot of that happened over time, and I had to spend time and go like, okay, so when you did that, what were you thinking? And then I could understand that in our bodies, both of us understood something that we didn't know it landed for us similarly, like we didn't understand how to do this. But then his action was quick to act, straight. And my thing was quick to ponder, quick to inquire, quick to be with it. But he acts so quickly that I don't have time. So I never have time to ponder. Sometimes he breaks shit. Sometimes my partner breaks shit and then he fixes shit, like, but I go like, oh, I could have worked it out differently.
Mm-hmm.
And then I zoom out and I go like, oh, patriarchy, like we're all like waiting to ponder. And then the guys are like, oh, I'll do it. And then we're like, oh, okay. So now we're all like, the women are kind of waking up and go like, we have to fix some shit here. Like, the guys have been too quick to act for a while.
I love what you're
And
talking about. It's so nuanced and it's so true in my world too. There's been this whole well, I had it introduced to me in a really clear way, what you're just bringing out, and I'd just like to share that too. Like Dr. Claire Zamet, who's been my teacher for a few years, talks about, the confidence gap and how, the biological imperative for man is to like their history, their evolutionary past has prepared them to be the providers and they need to have the answers. They're supposed to have answers. So most men, will act and display confidence, when they're about 30% certain tops, right? Because they're supposed to go and they're supposed to go out and they're supposed to know they're supposed to go out, and that's their biology, that's their history, it's in their genes. And then the women are now stepping out and stepping into things, but most women currently still feel like they need to be 85 to 90% certain before they act, like they're just crippled with anxiety. But it's because of this thing that you're talking about, like this desire to like inquire and ponder, and it's not necessarily a bad thing, but the paradigm that we're all living in is, and the truth is this other thing, that they're actually not confident. They're not actually not confident, but they just don't feel like they're allowed to not be confident. They can never express the doubt, can never express the fear, right? And I was just noticing in my life right now, like how as I'm moving into menopause and there's this like edge, this is like, yeah, just like, I don't know what this is, but I'm just not wasting any time. I'm just gonna like, I can see the impulse. My partner is just like jumps in to fix it. Like I'm just sharing certain things, just basic things like, oh, my elbow really hurts from the and it's like, well, you should be doing it. And here's a barf it. Like, the answer. This is the answer. And whereas I used to get mad at him, now I'm like, I don't know what I'm doing exactly. I don't know how to describe it, but there's like, there's a little thing in it's like, don't take it on, Delia. That's just his reflex, right? It's just his reflex. And I just correct him and I together somehow by saying, actually, you don't need to fix this. This is like and I just try and voice what's actually happening in my world. I don't know how well I'm doing it, but there's something to this, like learning how to negotiate those biological, imprints that we're all inside of in these like little micro ways is very empowering. Like just kind of, it really helps me to reframe like this whole sense that that I've had this programming that I have to defer to men and to their knowing. It just helps me just pull the reins back a little bit, even in these tiny little moments. So
can I just add one thing? I love what you just said. I love it. And I was just gonna add one layer that has been helpful to me, which is to see it through really generous lenses. Like it's not only their biology or what they've been trapped, it's their offering to the world. They came to fix things. They're amazing at it. Like by all means, do it. But we need to like what the fine tuning for me, and I love because it's exactly that, is going, like because us women, and that's the piece that a lot of women also don't see with generous lenses, is we are also programmed to accommodate. Estrogen is an accommodating hormone. That's beautiful, because we are embedded in reality. It's what makes us embedded in reality, is part of this accommodation to the tribe. But because the tribe kind of saw our value, we didn't need to speak for ourselves, because the men of the tribe saw our value too. So they could do what they did, and we could do what we do. But now it's being topsy-turvy. So we need to almost like fine tune. And you're beautiful. It's beautiful because you are already perimenopause, so it's natural to you, and it's kind of becoming natural to me. But for the women that are not in perimenopause, in which they will still swim in the imminence of reality and the accommodation, and then the non-accommodation, which is the other part of the cycle, what I try to share is like, if we honor the non-accommodation part of the cycle when it comes up, then we keep course correcting to accommodate to what is okay to accommodate to, like it's kind of like it does its thing. But when us, like the elder women that we're becoming, are meant to, in some ways, we're meant to work with the younger men. So the older women come to put a limit to the drive of testosterone of the younger men. So the younger men come and like, I know what to do. And the older woman comes like, hold on, hold your horses. hold your horses. But I love all
Yeah.
that.
And also maybe to work with the young. I had this feeling in my own spiritual practice that menopause, like the significance of menopause is like it's a gateway to become the crone. Like it's the squeeze to become the crone. So, or perimenopause is, and the significance of the crone is to be there. And I think this is what was in the human design system. This is what I connected to around women living longer and being there, right? Like we are learning how to actually help steward wisdom in the tribe. Like we're learning how to be the crone who facilitates wisdom. And ultimately, my personal feeling was that ultimately that's for death.
Mm.
Like we are bringing in, we are the bodies of birth and we are the bodies of death. Like somehow being the crone was being the body of death, being the body of letting go, and being that space that is there to show people the way to what it is to let go and to lose and to be disappointed, and and to gracefully exit in some way. And I felt like that's it, something that we most certainly not got a lot of spaces to hack, but I just feel that in my body is very, very true. Yeah.
I feel that's true too. And with that, a graceful transition to say we have 4 minutes left. And I'm not sure if we have time to really dive into anything else, because I want to, do these things justice and be able to really speak on whatever you want to get into next. But I'm so happy that you guys were here and you're very supportive and encouraging to me. That really means a lot, because I do want to do more of these types of, I don't know, lectures. There's an embodiment by nature, especially talking with other women about it. And that was very fulfilling for me to experience just then, Delia and Adriana. So I definitely feel the support as a very fertile woman. my husband and I have 2 children, and if we are not careful, I had a miscarriage as well. So anytime that we're not careful, like I get pregnant. So I also learned a lot just by hearing you guys talk together about what you're experiencing with your hormones and how that influences your outlook and within everything. Like it's very, very interesting. So thank you for sharing.
Thank you. Thank you. That was brilliant.
That was beautiful. And I would love to if you're grappling with things and you want to do more of these. I actually, to be frank, if you're happy to share online some things and people that come to your things are happy to share online, I'd be happy to host for C-Lab, because one of the things that I would love to do in C-Lab is lab wisdom that comes from women's bodies. So whatever the shape of wisdom, that because it's not seen so much how philosophy looks like, what is our Aristotle female body, because he clearly isn't, or Socrates, they clearly aren't, so what does it look like when it pours forth? And it might be Delia making movements and pouring with, there's so much creativity that we don't even tap into to make history. So I'm starting to record some things mostly to document, because we are oral storytellers. We are. And I can see most of my wise friends, they struggle to shape things into something written. Some people are amazing at it, but a lot of my friends don't do that. And it's not that they don't have wisdom, they have tremendous wisdom, but I'm like, so how do we honor the oral tradition that we are, and we have conversations and we build on collective wisdom shaped by women? So that's an invitation, because I love what you're creating, and I felt was very generative here, and I'd love to do something with the human design and the trans question that you posed. Also, it's very fertile for me, because me, Rachel, and Aiden, we're working at it really strongly. We've been in conversation for a year now of how to support teens and the whole make nuanced conversations about gender transition. So all of that is very much in my area of interest. And anything also that you want to explore, Delia, with your body of
Well,
work?
it's interesting. So I've had a huge history, just to share really briefly, with working with trans youth. I've worked and created performances with them for 8 years. I made 11 different shows with trans youth, and just and all youth in general, like all gender variants. But and then I came through and I came into this woman-centered work, and I came back to this notion of woman as something maybe a little bit more essentialist than I was embracing before. And now I'm really curious about that conversation that you're having. Just to put it that way, I'd love to be a part of it in some way, because yeah, it's a big part of my life, and I still don't really know. And I'd love to be a part of some mature conversations instead of some really polarized conversations and idealistic conversations. So yeah.
I am very interested in doing the C-Lab work, because putting myself out there helps me structure and put my freak to genius. And it's much better to do that than not speak at all. I've come to that conclusion. It's scary, but and with with the transitions and there's such a rich, complex ecosystem of how that can play out, and it is not black and white. And I've struggled tremendously with coming to terms with what I feel about all of that as, a cis person, as someone, that put on makeup before this video call. I'm like, I'm gonna put on makeup. And I question that. Why? Why do I, So yeah, all the gender things and other things too that I'm really interested in. I would love to speak more about it. So thank you for the invitation. I can email you maybe.
Yes,
And then
please.
Julia, I'd love to know, like, can we work with you personally? Do you do personal readings and stuff like that for people?
Yes. So I have a website, reflectionsbydesign.com. I do one-on-ones. I am also doing a lot of group activities this year. So I'm doing in-person retreats, which is a new exciting thing. And also some online workshops, in-person mini workshops. I'm trying to build community here with human design, and a lot of that I think it needs to happen in person, and that can be overlooked sometimes, but I do virtual stuff and you can just visit.
Where are you, Julie, in the world?
I'm right outside Kansas City, so very
Kansas.
energetic part of the world right now.
Mm.
Very
Mm.
intense energy today after the Super Bowl win. If you
Right.
didn't know,
Wow.
Adriana, we're
Not
Oh,
champions
sorry.
again. We're
I
champions
don't even
again.
know.
Wow. Okay, so I'll reach out to you personally because I would love to work with you. So
Oh,
Oh,
thank you
beautiful.
so much for this,
Thank you. Beautiful.
for time with both of you.